And hey there, hi there, ho there, and a gracious good Saturday morning to you. Welcome back to another exciting edition of the Cardinal Couple Radio Hour podcast, where we discuss the joy and excitement of UofL women's athletics. And we have something going on today that hasn't happened in at least a couple of months. We have all five of our normal participants in here with us today on the broadcast. That's right. You've got Case, you've got Jeff and Jared, Daryl, and me, Polly, all here to espouse, debate, and make commentary on what has happened this last week. And unfortunately, it wasn't the biggest week for Louisville women's basketball, with one game being postponed due to COVID protocols, but we do have a great game that the Cards played against Syracuse to talk about. One that I think had all five of us a little bit nervous, maybe, in this one as it progressed, but the Cards pulled it out in fine fashion. So let's go ahead and get on into things as we like to do at the start of the show, kind of catch up with our participants today. And let's start with the girl who's been gone, Daryl Faust. Daryl, welcome back. How are you feeling? What's going on?
Hey team, I'm doing all right. I appreciate everyone's understanding, but yeah, I got my baby visits in on Friday night, so opened up Saturday for me, and yeah, be back to talk about one game. Um, Glad we have games, so complain about that.
Absolutely, they are playing, and although there will be a couple of games actually canceled on Sunday, we found out due to inclement weather expected to hit the Commonwealth of Virginia. And that wouldn't it be something if they've canceled these games already, and then wouldn't it be something if nothing happens? It's like, whose great idea was this? But that's kind of the way forecasting weather goes sometimes. Case Hoskins in the house with us too. Case was unable to get with us last week due to intranet problems, but he's back and rolling again. Welcome back, bud.
Thanks. It's been a fun couple of weeks. The internet was just kind of the least of our worries. We had um, sewer backup last month that we got fixed, and then they identified another problem that we got fixed that was more significant. And then last weekend we were playing host to my sister-in-law and her family because they were doing showings for their house. And trying to entertain a 3-year-old with no internet on Friday night was a nightmare. Woke up to no internet on Saturday morning as well. Um, and then the sewer decided to back up again. So then we had no internet and we had no plumbing. And then Saturday or Sunday morning, um, thankfully, the family gave us the grace to leave us alone with no internet and no plumbing. Saturday morning, we woke up and I had just had enough time to make my coffee before the power went out. So then we had no power and no plumbing, and we finally went to a friend's house to take showers and got our power back on Sunday night. Plumbing restored on Monday, and now we are finally in a position where maybe things are okay.
Knock on wood, right?
Yeah,
Ah, the joys of home ownership in the suburb of Louisville, right?
I
Yes,
think our
indeed.
house heard us say that we wanted to move and then decided to take it out on us.
As long as you don't see floating apparitions in the kitchen, offering you scrambled eggs, I think you'll be okay there. But Jared Anderson in the house with us. Jared, of course, always a very, very busy guy, taking photos, running around the U of L events, and then of course, he's also one that has had some internet problems in the past, but he's right now currently doing some shopping. What's up, bud?
Not much. I'm enjoying the stronger Wi-Fi at my parents' house right now. I was doing some puppy sitting for the weekend, and she decided it was back to bed for her after being up for maybe 2 hours. So, it's such a wonderful life to have to be a dog, right?
Ah, yes, the life of being a canine with pampered owners. It can certainly be a very good thing. Jeff in the house. Jeff was the first one on board today, and wondering if anybody was going to join him for the broadcast around 10:45. A kind of a late arriving crew today, but Jeff, what's going on in your world?
Oh, not a whole lot. Made it out to the basketball game, so that's always fun. Went to the snow game on the previous one before the pause, and made it out to Syracuse as well. So it's fun. Having a good time, enjoying. Wishing it was a little warmer, but that's being in winter. So that's what I do. Wish it were warmer.
Well, it's certainly good thoughts indeed, and it bothers me to see these Facebook posts of some of my friends who are older than I and now retired and are now basking in the sun and the warmth of Florida right now and sending these cutesy pictures of sunsets and them sipping margaritas at beachside cafes and stuff like that. And I just send them back a one word text and it starts with F. And never mind. Enough on that. Certainly, if you've got the money, go do it. I certainly wish that I could be down in the Naples area right now, chilling, but such as it is. Yeah, a lot of stuff going on today. We'll start out with a little scheduling and Twitter information. With Case back in the house, we'll turn that over to him.
Yeah, so nearly forgot my duties there. But the schedule is filling back up now that we've got swimming, golf, and tennis are getting underway, and track and field um, in their indoor season. So we'll start with today. Men's basketball headed up to Pittsburgh to take on the Panthers for the second time in 2 weeks, trying to rebound from a calamity on Wednesday night. Women's basketball also on the road this weekend as they head to Boston College. That one's at noon tomorrow on the ACC network. So be sure to check into that one. Monday is the only day off for everybody this week. On Tuesday, the Battle of the Bluegrass will take place in Naples, Florida. Speaking of Naples Poly, that's listed as a home match hosted by the women's golf team, but they headed down south for warmer weather and a little bit of sun instead of whatever it is that we'll get here at the Cardinal Club in Simpsonville. Men's tennis hosts Dayton and Bellarmine on Tuesday. They'll have their series of matches against Dayton at noon, followed by matches against Bellarmine at 5. Men's basketball hosts Boston College on Wednesday night at 7 p.m. That one's on RSN, so fortunately I don't even have to try to not watch that one. I just won't be able to. Women's basketball takes on NC State at 7:30 on Thursday night. That one just listed as ESPN Networks, so they haven't decided where exactly they'll put that one. Probably, I would guess ESPN2 for that one, but we will see. On Friday, the track and field teams head to Blacksburg to start the Hokie Invitational. Women's tennis gets their season started by hosting Cincinnati and Marshall at 11 and 5, and men's tennis gets their Battle of the Bluegrass out of the way early when they head to Lexington to take on Kentucky. Also, Battle of the Bluegrass on Saturday. Swimming is hosting Kentucky. That one doesn't start till 1, but figured I'd drop it in here because people won't hear it until it's too late to head over to Ralph Wright. As for Twitter, Twitter's the best place to keep up with track and field and swimming results. Both of those Twitter accounts very active, very good at posting results immediately after. You can follow along with those and others on the right side of the Cardinal Couple website. As for the crew here, I tweet as at best case scenario, BST case scenario. Polly is at Cardinal Couple. Jeff is at Card Couple Radio and at Jeff McAdams. Jared's at Mr. Anderson Jared, and Daryl is at Daryl Faust 4. So a blitz through the scheduling and Twitter on that one because we have so much to talk about with the one game from the week.
It does sound like there's quite a few battles of the bluegrass coming up next week, so certainly a chance to do some things against the Wildcats, who are another top 25 team in basketball and one that has had some successes, but bracketology and Charlie Cream and his way of doing things has, of course, obviously put Kentucky in Louisville's region, where the Cards are number 1 seed, and I think Kentucky was 8 or 9 seed, something like that. So Let's hope that doesn't come to fruition. I would just as soon not run into what I consider a dangerous Wildcat team early on in the NCAA when there are the options of playing like a Perryview or a Grambling or a Northeastern instead, right? Let's try to see if we can skate through a couple before we hit the Sweet 16. But that, of course, in the future, we got stuff that happened on Thursday night, and that was the University of Louisville women's basketball team hosting the Syracuse Orange in the KFCM Center. The Cards getting an 84-71 win over Syracuse. Big efforts out of Haley Van Lith and Keanu Smith, 20 points each. We also had Emily Inkster with 15 points in just a mere 24 minutes, I might add. And Olivia Cochran, 13 points, 22 minutes. The Cards using a 25-15 fourth quarter to put this one away. Daryl had the write up on that, so let's go ahead and start with you, Daryl. This was the one that had us a bit nervous, eh?
All the way up until the last minute, didn't it? Was that just me?
No, it wasn't
I
just
was
you.
I was comfortable with about 4 minutes to go, but still a little antsy.
Phew. Well, you and I guess Kiana Smith and maybe some other leaders on the squad too. I think they said that they felt that they had the confidence to pull out the win, but getting that shot with I think it was like 45 seconds left on the clock, pulling it within 6, I was not comfortable. But there's also that voice in my head saying, "Well, this is UofL women's basketball, and I trust Coach Walls and his whiteboard, or this team and their confidence on the floor." And they really proved it. I really think that the mindset of this women's basketball team is that they can beat anybody, no matter how late in the game it comes down to, or who they need to step up. They feel like they have each other's back, and they can put points on the board and get the victory. And I just really enjoy watching them a lot more than I do a lot of other programs around around U of L.
Indeed, and they've certainly, I think, done very, very well in terms of other programs around Louisville without digressing into some of the maladies going on in other programs. We are rolling along quite well. And here's a statement I came up with the other day. See what you think of it. Syracuse has cars, and they also have style.
Yeah.
Referring, of course, Jeff, to 3 of the players on the Syracuse team who all 3 performed well in a Syracuse squad that only put 6 on the floor. Not at the same time, obviously, but 6 on the floor against the Cardinals.
Yeah, it was it was interesting. Everybody's been vaunting the UofL defense this year, and it kind of fell apart. But then we scored the highest we scored all season, with the exception of exhibition game against Belmont. I would like a game where we put both of those together, please. That would be kind of nice, and have both offense and defense. But yeah, credit to the Carr sisters and Style. They were able to continue to play, to be able to play at that pace through the whole game and make it competitive through the whole game, which is tough against this quick, aggressive defense, attack Yorkie style defense that Louisville plays. It's impressive to see that.
It was indeed to see us pull it out at the end, and Jared was in the house taking photos of himself. And although we got a great one of Valerie Combs Owens, and I appreciate that because she scared the hell out of me before the game when I was busy tweeting, and then she walks up and goes, "Boo!" I did not expect it.
Good for her.
I mean, I didn't see her, and I just kind of jumped in my chair, and I looked up and I said, "Oh my God, I thought you were Angel in drag," and she didn't like that comment very much. But anyway, this was a game, Jared, where the Cards would go on a run. They'd maybe get up by 8 or 10 points, but Syracuse came knocking back at the door. They actually took the lead in the third quarter, in the fourth quarter, and it wasn't until the end that the Cards pulled this out. But a Syracuse team that came in here, obviously, just a little bit over 500. 8-7, 1-4 in conference. I expected a little easier go for Louisville, but Syracuse showed a lot of fight, didn't they?
Yeah, and you're looking at the biggest situation or issue that you're running into with this game is just the fact that Louisville had been on a COVID pause, and as well as I'd mentioned, the first time they had gotten to practice, and even though it was 5 players, was Monday, and they didn't have a full roster until about 24 hours before the game. So you don't have a chance to game plan, and you don't have a chance to kind of run some of the drills to execute that game plan, and even to the point where you can't really get your defense going and get that extra shoot around you'd like. Although Yuba did shoot fairly well, I was impressed with their shooting on the night. But also with Syracuse being a newer team, and in terms of the rebuild right now, because you don't know much about the different players that have come in, you haven't gotten to see them play together much. The new coach, new style, and it's a lot easier to teach offense really quickly in a tight bind than it is to try and establish a defense. And when you can just get a team that's going to be able to run up and down the court for the full 40 minutes and really push the pace and get their offense going, find the extra pass, get an open shot real quick. On top of the fact that you're shooting about 50% from three, which you have to give them credit for on that. But just trying to run a quick offense doesn't take as much time as really wanting to get a defense going as UofL's done over the past few years to get that strong, steady defense.
And defense, of course, has been something the Cards have hung their hat on in past games, not so much maybe against Syracuse until the very, very end, where they went on that 9-1 run to kind of set the Orange aside for the last time, at least in my opinion, they did. Uh, but Case, take a look at this Syracuse team doing this with only 6 players. I would say the majority of those, although I haven't looked, were in through the transfer portal who joined the squad and a first-year head coach. I'm kind of amazed that they're at 500 in this league.
Yeah, like we mentioned, only trotting 6 out there for the frenetic pace that Louisville plays is a testament to this team's conditioning. So that was pretty amazing. As for how Louisville's defense played, it was really kind of an odd situation. Both teams were positive on their points off turnovers compared to the turnovers that they created. And theoretically, you should have at least double the number of points off turnovers if you have an efficient offense as you had turnovers. But Louisville turned the ball over 10 times. Syracuse turned that into 11 points. And Syracuse turned it over 20 times. Louisville turned it into 24 points. So Louisville was playing the defense to offensive transition that we've seen in the past and doing it pretty frequently. It was just in the half-court defense that they really struggled. Syracuse had no fast break points and 22 points in the paint. 8 second chance points. They won that battle. So Louisville kind of gave up the worst of the offensive rebounds that they could. 8 second chance points on just 9 offensive rebounds for Syracuse is pretty efficient and pretty inefficient defense on rebounding for Louisville. So a fantastic effort by them, and the half-court defensive effort by UofL just a very odd situation. It's kind of the only way I can describe it.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And I was looking at a couple stats in this game, Daryl. Maybe you can go into these just a little bit more. But Syracuse only had 10 assists on 26 made baskets, which kind of indicates to me once a player has decided they're going to the hoop, they're not going to pass off. And they were making a lot of close-in 5-7 foot jumpers on the Cards where we weren't going to have to react on it. But then consequently, when you take a look at the points in the paint, Daryl, we won that battle 46-22. So a game of some quandaries to me on that.
Yeah, the stat sheet does tell us a lot here, but I mean, I wanted to piggyback off what you said about Syracuse. You know, once they decide that they're going to take the shot, they take it. Well, I mean, if you look at the defense for U of L and Emily Angsler being one of the best defenders in the conference, she will take the ball out of your hands, and she has no problem doing that. And Chelsea Hall, I think she had five steals in this game. I mean, she didn't really get it done on the offensive end, but she was out there making plays and giving her team a chance. And I'm telling you, I just in since conference play started, I'm amazed at the way that the team is able to take the ball back and get it back on offense. Um, and Emily just really, she was going to take the ball from her former team. You could just feel it, and there's so much energy out of her. I touched on it in the Fred report, and I think I saw a couple comments from our readers too, saying they're not really liking um, her attitude sometimes, her uh, arguing calls. Maybe I like it.
Fits
The
of
emotion,
passion, you might say.
the passion, the
Fits of
emotion
passion. It's
she
a good word.
showed, especially against her former squad that she spent several years at. I'm sure she's disappointed in the way that turned out, but I'm sure she's also very grateful to be on a squad like UofL and looking ahead to her next chapter in her life. She's putting it all out on the floor, and I'm really enjoying watching her play and this team's ability to get the ball back on offense.
She was certainly one here, Jeff. I think who was did a couple things well. She got to the foul line well, went 6 for 6 from there. And another factor in here is when you take a look at, once again, she led the Cards in the rebounds with 8. She's going to go in and battle, and sometimes maybe ill advisedly so, but Emily's not going to surrender the ball back to the other team very easily, and certainly wants it back when they've got it.
Yeah, she is. Um, she's a good player. She knows the game. She plays it very well. And I want to say that she's like she wants to do. I almost want to say that she wants to do the things herself, but then she has some pretty good assist numbers, so she doesn't have a problem like passing to others. But yeah, once she has the ball, she has the strength, and she has the techniques to be able to hang on to it and prevent the other team from getting access to it and steals. So our turnover numbers tend to be pretty low. This is in contrast to a few others of our players that about every other time they get the ball, I'm like, no, 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 don't do that. And yeah, so, but yeah, she's got a real sense of how to move, what to do with the ball that prevents the other team from being able to get access to it. It's an I think almost an innate ability. That's great to see.
Jared, we've traditionally seen maybe 10 Cards out there who spend the majority of time on the court in Wallace's substitution patterns and such. That was shortened to 9. Alana Smith unavailable, assuming it was COVID related, but not didn't get a definite on that. But Wallace assured us that everybody would be ready to go at Boston College. But this 9-player rotation that Louisville used, I think, was fairly effective in some areas. But one of the things that kind of bothered me about it a little bit is that Louisville seemed to just have smaller guards than Syracuse.
Yeah, we definitely had on the smaller lineup, and you looked at Haley Van Lith can be a little bit on the shorter side compared to some of the guards nowadays, and Chelsea Hall's on the shorter side. Casa, Narika, they're not short in terms of just like short, but when you get to today's day and age of basketball and how the height has kind of grown over the years in terms of recruiting, you're right. We do have some shorter ones there, but I thought we did a good job on the outside being able to knock down some shots. So it did kind of spread the defense out and give some of our guards a little extra chance of a one-on-one look here and there. As well as it really opened up, what I was impressed with is how much it opened up the paint and allowed us to kind of penetrate and get down to Olivia and Emily and even a few times there with Liz and really dominate the points in the paint. I think that's what stood out is that overall, when it comes to the forwards and kind of your post players, we had height. But then when it came to kind of the outside shooting, I think that's why Syracuse was able to get so many good looks off. It's just that 2-3 inch height advantage they had.
The Cards shot 51.5% for the game, but listen to these 3 numbers I'm going to give you. Olivia Cochran, 5 for 10. That's 50%. That's not so bad. Liz Dixon, 4 for 6, over 500. And then we had Emily Inksler, 4 for 8 at 50%. So to bear out what you said, our bigs were getting touches inside and producing on them, Jeff. And I think when you can do that, it does make a defense kind of a little bit wary of oh, they're going inside again. Come on, let's scoot in and see if we can stop it.
Yeah, that's that I think is highlighted by some of what Jeff Walls was talking about post game with our defense was a step slow. You know, they were able to get in and dodge around players and get a step on them, and then you're trying to play catch up, and that's not what you want to do on defense. You want to be anticipating, and that hurt us a lot. Like I said, I would love to have a game where we have both defense and offense playing well in the same game, and the defense has let us down this time, but. It, their size is going to contribute to that inside, but you got to deal with that. We play a quick lineup. That's going to be a smaller lineup usually, and you make some adjustments in your game plan. You listen to your coach. He's shown that he knows how to put together game plans with this type of lineup. But you know, gotta pay attention to the scout and do the things that the coach says, so you're playing to that game plan.
A lot of credit here, I think, goes to Syracuse and the Carr sisters, who were both arrivals at Syracuse through the transfer portal, both of them coming in from Big 12 schools. Kansas State and Baylor, I think, were the two areas that they left to come to Syracuse on to join up with first-year coach Vaughn Reed. They were very, very good in what they did as well. And when we talk about the Cardinal shooting, Crystalline Carr was 7 for 10, and Christiana Carr was 6 for 14. So certainly not bad from them at all.
Yeah, and when you add in Tisha Hyman, then you look at those three players. They were combined 50% from the floor and better than 50% from beyond the arc, and then they shot a combined 7 of 8 from the free throw line. So easy to see how they got to the 19, 17, and 16 points, respectively, that they ended up with.
And they weren't in foul trouble.
Those three, managed to stay out of foul trouble. They turned the ball over quite a bit, but so did everybody, because, like we said, Louisville was incredibly effective on the turnover side. It was when they weren't forcing a turnover that Louisville was getting a little bit exposed on the offensive or on the defensive end. And those two things can kind of go together. If a team starts to smell blood in the water like Louisville did, they ended up with 11 steals. If you can't keep a level head, then you can start to over pursue passing lanes. You can reach too deep on a pickpocket attempt, and you can give up easy passes. You can give up driving lanes and put yourself in a bad position, which I think may have contributed to kind of Louisville's half-court defensive woes, while they were still able to manage a fair number of turnovers. But like we said, credit to Syracuse offensively. And then I wanted to point out, I think that 20 points is the season high for Haley Van Lith this year.
And it's likely.
I think so.
Yeah.
It seems like there were a couple of things working in her favor on this one. One, Paul, you mentioned Liz Dixon, Olivia Cochran, and Emily Inksler on the inside. Offensively, that's not something that we've seen a ton, is Louisville being able to really get that clear out space in the paint and get the opportunity to like force the opponent's inside defenders to be on their people in the paint. And that is a lot more Haley Van Lith's game. She is a good shooter, but she's most dangerous as well when she can get off the bounce and drive the lane, stuff like that. And then also Syracuse only playing with 6 players. The refs weren't exactly calling it loose. They were making fair foul calls, so Syracuse really had to put themselves in a position where they weren't fouling, and that really opened up some driving lanes for Haley Van Lith and a lot of shooting opportunities that I think should hopefully continue to drive those confidence boosts that we've seen from her lately and get the player that we expected her to be as she molds more into the role that she's being asked to this season.
Officiating Crew, which is a veteran crew, one that we've seen in the KFC Yum Center many times with Karen Prado and Bruce Morris and then Mark Berger. All three have called multiple games inside the KFC Yum Center and apparently also have rabbit ears with Emily Inkster picking up a technical for making a comment about one of the officials' performance. Jared got to see that, and without going into explicit detail, Jared, what kind of happened on that one there?
Yeah, you have to look at the point that women's basketball officiating just absolutely sucks. It's horrible. So, both as a fan and a media standpoint,
That's
Saved
the
me.
baseline. We're starting there, okay?
I was gonna save me from having to say it. Okay, thanks.
as a fan and media standpoint, it really is embarrassing to the women's basketball game. How do you want to grow in popularity and get more viewers and more people to want to come out to games and support them when you draw up the bottom of the line officials that really shouldn't even be out there officiating elementary and middle school games? So from that point of view, I can understand the frustration that Emily Inkster had and Jeff Walls had. And I love the passion that Emily has. I think we mentioned this before, just how very Sam Furing like it is, and she brings that passion and energy on the court. And you need that. You need people who are going to bring that emotion and allow your teammates to feed off of it. But you have to do it in a way that you either don't get caught by the officials or you don't do something stupid right in front of their face. Like the couple weeks ago when she got called on that technical and she looked at the refs dead in the eyes and said, "That's effing BS." I'm like, well, they're going to tee you up every time. And then this last game, then she looks right at the ref, and she's directing her words at the ref and says, "You've gotten effing worse." Like, what do you expect them to do? I mean, any official is going to tee you up for that. And I get the frustration, but sometimes just walk away,
And didn't Haley have to pull her off?
Yeah.
Right, and that's the part I'm surprised she didn't get a second technical and get ejected, because she was, after that, she was still just jawing and letting it go. And I mean, she was ready to go on a rampage, and you're like, you're too much of an upperclassman and veteran to do this. And I don't know what the situation was like at Syracuse in terms of how that was handled with technicals and what you could get away with, but Jeff Walls and his staff is not going to allow that. And you've got to understand that it's too crucial of a game and a close game to be able to be giving away free throws and free points to the opposing team. Like, just go to the bench and take a couple minutes to breathe and calm down. If you need to run into the tunnel and smack something, then do that. Just, you can't let it affect your performance.
Take out photographer row. Yeah, I mean, do whatever you got to do. A couple things on it.
Jared a few times.
Yeah. Come on, give me a
go
kick.
and punch Jared a couple times, and
I'll be all right. I can survive.
asking why he's taking selfies of himself the whole game. No.
Now, I do want to piggyback off of that because of the COVID pause, and there were times in the game that the offense went cold, or a combination of that and the defense going a little cold and letting Syracuse get back in this one. And we've been dealing with COVID for years now, and we've seen some of our favorite players contract the virus, and then they're not able to bounce back.
Asia
That's exactly who I'm thinking of, either physically or mentally or both. So I don't know if we know exactly who had tested positive, who had symptoms, or what, or if that's a violation of HIPAA or whatnot, but we can assume. I'm just glad to see some passion that's still out there, and I just don't want anybody on the squad to lose that, because it really does make a difference.
Just the imagery of Haley Van Lith backing off Emily Inkster is kind of like a Yorkie backing a pit bull off.
Yeah.
I will say that at least in the legal regimes of libel and slander, truth is an absolute defense. So
That's right. Know the truth, and it shall set you free, Karen Prado. Wherever you're calling your game Sunday, realize that you suck. No, I'm just kidding. I shouldn't say that. But it's a game that, yes, it was a win. Was it a pretty win? No, but it was a win where the Cards did what they had to do at the end and showed the true mark of a champion here, Jeff. When the chips were close, could have gone either way. Louisville puts on a spurt and puts this thing out of reach, and that's what you look for in championship teams.
Yeah, absolutely. This is actually something I kind of wanted to point out. And you look at third quarter Syracuse. They could have been a Larry Bird McDonald's commercial. They'd be shooting the ball from section 312. Over the rafter, out the window, off the bridge, bounce at half court, nothing but net. And they shot 66%, basically 2 out of 3 shots, made it from anywhere on the court. That was amazing. They were doing circuit shots and crazy things, and they were falling, and Louisville didn't give up in the face of that. Obviously, our defense was a little off. We were a step slow, as we talked about, but they were also making some incredible shots, and that can be a little demoralizing. But they stepped up. Louisville stepped up. They kept playing. They pushed through, and in the fourth quarter, at the end of the fourth quarter, just like shut it down at the end of the fourth quarter. Last 3 or 4 minutes of it. Um, that's what makes this Louisville team great, is that they know they have it. They know they can turn it on. I just wish they would do it a little more regularly. Is all.
Yeah, we would like a little more comfort zone there, I think, in what the Cards can do. But so a good win for Louisville. They now head to Boston College to take on a Boston College team, which I guess the term you could use would be routinely thumped when they played them in the KFCM Center earlier this year. But this isn't your same Boston College team that Louisville played back then. The Eagles are 3-2 in conference. They're also 12-4 overall, and certainly a team that is on a 4-game winning streak. Case. Some things there that kind of make me think that this may not be the big blowout win that we had in the KFCM Center against them.
Yeah, and just real quick before I go into that, Jeff talking about Louisville being able to get it done against Syracuse reminded me of listening to the Card Chronicle podcast this week and talking about how the Louisville men's team under Rick Pitino always looked like a team that was going to get it done against the teams that they were supposed to win against. And similarly, that's been the case with this Jeff Walls coached Louisville women's team. When it comes down to it, you always feel like they're going to have a chance against any team that they play every single year. And in the games that they're supposed to win, they're going to come out and they're going to play as hard as they can. And they're going to be, angry enough that they're going to get teed up and maybe teed up twice in a row in that kind of position, and always fiery and ready to take on all comers. And that matters. Like Jeff mentioned, when Syracuse comes out and can't miss for anything in the third quarter and wins that quarter, and Louisville is able to steady themselves, recover mentally and emotionally, and buckle down to win the fourth quarter by 10 points with some free throw help on fouls, but to come back and stay focused and win that game is critically important. Similarly, with a game coming up against Boston College, they've won 3 straight, like you said, or 4 straight really. Yeah, with the Pitt game being postponed in the middle there. But you got wins over Pitt, not a particularly world-beating team. Clemson, I believe, is struggling this year. This Syracuse team that we just played, they blew them out, so there's something to think there. And then the game that started that run was against New Hampshire. Louisville, like we said, beat the tar out of them on December 30th, won by 30. But yeah, this team has won some games recently where they've built up a lot of momentum, and now they get to play host in a game that they just saw Louisville be vulnerable on Thursday night against the Syracuse team that Boston College was able to win handily against. And anytime you've got a top 5 team or top 3 in this case coming into your gym, you're going to give it your all. So Louisville's going to have to stay focused. I definitely don't expect them to win by 30 again, but hopefully, if they can do like they did against that Boston College game and kind of pair their offense and defense to get good play out of both, then Louisville should be able to win this game, even if it's not quite as decisive.
Daryl, looking just to some of the basic numbers going into this one, Boston College is 4th in the league in scoring offense, almost 77 points a game. The Cards 7th at about 71 points a game. Scoring defense, the Cards 2nd in the league behind Georgia Tech, allowing less than 50 points a game. Boston College, on the other hand, 12th in the league, giving up about 65 points a game. And when it comes to scoring margin, the Cards are beating people by an average of 21 points. Boston College beating people by an average of 10 points. The unknown factors here, of course, are Cameron Swartz. Cameron Swartz stood up huge for BC a couple games back. I think she had 39 points, was hitting everything in Clemson's gymnasium, including the scorekeepers and the gyms outside of the arena. An incredible effort by her. Somebody who really didn't do that much against us, but it looks like she's been reborn strong, Daryl.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at, what she did against us last time. That was not much. 1 for 11, 0 for 3. She did get a few points, and that was at the free throw line. I was trying to recall back to that first game. It was like the Taylor Soul show in the first quarter, and neither team could get their feet under them. I think both squads were 3-less in the first quarter before they turned it up before halftime. That was actually the reason that it looked to be a blowout, because that first quarter was real dry. But yeah, like you said, these Boston College players are going to have to step it up this time around if they want to make it a game. It was like the first quarter was the only promising showing for Boston College in that one before the Cards turned up the Jets. And yeah, they're going to have to do a lot better this time around.
I definitely agree with you. Louisville will need to be on their A game, so to speak, and certainly, hopefully, not have a couple things bother them as far as fouls go. Although we haven't really seen any of our players in too serious foul trouble yet this year. Certainly, Boston College is the type of team that will drive you in, try to beat you up inside physically, and that could go bad depending on how the whistles are being blown. But so, how is the ACC doing? The question that comes up next here as we take a look at conference standings as of yesterday. On top, no surprises here with NC State and Louisville, the lone 2 ACC schools, still undefeated. A slew of teams with just one loss here, as everybody is trying, I think, jockey themselves for getting a top 4 regular season finish to get that double bye. North Carolina, 4-1. Georgia Tech, 4-1. Virginia Tech, 4-1. And Notre Dame, 3-1. So what you have here basically when you take a look at it is 6 teams that are kind of in the hunt and the battle for those 4 spots. Does any of that surprise you at all, Jared, in those standings and listings?
NC State and UofL don't really surprise me at all right now. North Carolina being as high as they are is a little bit of a surprise, especially being 14-1 on the year, just overall. Georgia Tech, I feel like we've seen has kind of gradually started to get better over the years, and I want to compare them to the Georgia Tech volleyball team, where they're a really good team and they're going to be ranked throughout the year and they can make a nice little run in the tournament, but they just sit behind a couple teams in the ACC that are better than them, and they're not going to be able to get over that hump, especially this year. Honestly, looking at everything, the big surprise for me this year has been Florida State, and they're nowhere close to the top. They're sitting there towards the bottom at 7-7 on the year and 1-3 in the conference, and that's just not what I'm used to seeing with the Seminole Sioux and her squad. So something seems a little up there. and it'll make me curious to see what happens when we play them here in a couple weeks from now, and if they've kind of adjusted or if they're going to be the same team that we've seen this year, which just hasn't been impressive.
Certainly, some other interesting areas here in the conference standings. Duke at 2-2 in conference, 11-3 overall. I thought that they might be just a little bit better team this year, Jeff, based on some of the players they got into the transfer portal, and certainly a very fine Hall of Fame coach down there. But it's not quite coming together for them in conference, is it?
Yeah, I'm really, Jared, you managed to take every point I was going to make initially. But so, I mean, like almost word for word. But yeah, Duke is still a little bit of an unknown, obviously, with the coaching change. And then they didn't really play much at all last year. Carol Lawson there as coach is obviously has significant amount of fame and skills as a player and as a TV commentator, color analyst, and she does a very, very fine job of that. There was, I think, some amount of cushioning of how well she's going to do as a coach. I think it's a good start, right? This is 11-3 overall, 2-2 in conference is not bad, and for just kind of starting out and rebuilding a team that had fallen on some real tough struggles, that's, I got to give her some credit. She's doing all right.
The days of Lexi Brown and Rebecca Greenwell were gone, thank goodness, right?
Well, the days of having a great recruiting coach but a terrible on-court coach are gone.
Yeah,
So we'll say that. Give her a few years, give her a chance to kind of build this program and build the culture and build the recruiting pipeline. I think she's got a lot of potential there. I think we'll see them in the next few years start kind of climbing those standings a little bit.
The foundation of the conference, to put it politely, Darrell, is being held up by Virginia, Pitt, and Clemson, who are a combined 0-13 in ACC play. I think that maybe gives us an idea on who 3 of the 4 teams that play on Wednesday night in the ACC tournament might possibly be there. But certainly, and you look at all 3 programs, really, I didn't expect much out of Virginia coming into the season. I figured Pitt might be doing a little bit better. And I had some hope and optimism, Darrell, for Clemson with some of the players they got in from the transfer portal and who they had returning. But it certainly hasn't gone their way this year so far, has it?
Not like we remember in recent years. I feel like Clemson was one of those squads that we would look forward to that game because it was close, and it was like they were becoming one of those squads that could take our feet out from under us. I think it's pretty established that UofL is the top dog in the ACC, and I don't know. It's kind of like everyone else is dropping off at this point. You'd think that we were on our way up as a conference, but like you said, it's that bottom of the barrel is kind of getting worse. Is that fair to say?
I think you could be right there. Yeah.
I just feel like this COVID, the last 2 years have totally derailed a lot of programs with the transfer portal, with just personal lives. I mean, we don't know what's going on in these players' lives that could have changed in the last few years. There's so many variables that can contribute to wins and losses.
I would contend that the conference is actually how to phrase it. The conference, it seems like, played well, especially in the non-conference. Every team, with the exception of Virginia, was not just 500 but over 500 in non-conference play. And then obviously you've had quite a few teams drop off. The Florida State 1-3 is surprising. Clemson just fallen apart. I think that the conference itself is becoming more stratified. It used to be that you had Notre Dame, Louisville, Florida State were at the top, and then kind of everybody else was fighting for what was left. And now you're seeing the tiers kind of develop a little bit more. I'm curious to see what NC State will be like once Alyssa Cunane is gone. I really feel like she's propping up that team. I mean, obviously they've been very good. They've been in the top 5 since she's been there.
Great coach.
But yeah, and well coached. But I don't. It's not like you've seen them play in a way that's like, wow, yeah, they're poised to be a perennial contender forever. It's like once Alyssa Cudane's gone, it'll be interesting to see what happens. But Notre Dame kind of bouncing back. Florida State, like we said, is having a down year, but the middle of the conference has really kind of defined itself with Syracuse kind of dropping out. And I think that since you've got, a tier A or a tier 1, a tier 1A, and then a tier 2, some of those teams that have struggled in the past, like Clemson and Pitt and Virginia, they aren't able to keep pace with Boston College and Duke and steal some games off of them. So instead of having a bunch of teams that are fighting around 500 in conference, you have a few teams that are going to be basement dwellers, and then you're going to have some mid-tier teams and some top-tier teams.
After these trips to Boston College, the Cards have a very, very formidable task ahead of them. So next Thursday night, they will travel to NC State to face up with the Wolfpack down there. Raleigh, after that, Wake Forest, a team that's, kind of has been good, but they've also had some interesting losses. I don't think they're a team that you can totally throw out the window yet as far as where they may end up in the conference. They certainly got off to a very good start, and they're 12-5 overall, but 2-4 in the ACC. And then, of course, after playing that Wake Forest game, the Cards will return home to bring in Seminole Sioux and Florida State on the 27th. So this next 3-game sweep, I'll be quite honest with you, I'll be happy to get out of this one at 2-1. 3-0 would be perfect, but certainly North Carolina State to test their. What say you guys on this next 3-game junket for the Cards after Boston College? Can we sweep all 3 of these, Jared?
Yeah, I think it's possible. It just depends what Louisville team shows up to play, and it's not the defense that worries me for us. It's the offense and the fact that we still just are so inconsistent with what we're doing offensively. I mean, we've got to get better, just all around shooting the ball. Free throws, knock on wood, it looks like we've addressed the free throw issue pretty well, and I'm happy we have. But the missed layups that we still continue to have issues with, and just anything that's just about point blank range, I just don't get why that's happening so much. That should be some of your easiest shots to make, even if you're drawing contact. Like, it's good to expect that you're going to get hit, but you still also need to. If they're not going to touch you, then you got to find a way to make the basket. Boston College, obviously not too worried about. NC State's the one of the rest of January that bothers me. I think we'll be fine with Duke. I think we're fine with Wake Forest. Way Florida State's been playing, I'm not too worried about them. But NC State's always been tough for us, especially with Cunane, and playing down there at Raleigh is going to make it a bit more of a rough atmosphere to go up against. So, like you said, just the one loss wouldn't be too bad.
The loudest little gym in the world, as they like to proclaim they are down there in Raleigh. I don't know, Jeff, does this make sense to you at all? 2-1 wouldn't be bad to have.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you want to win games, and you always want to go out there and win games. But if we dropped it to NC State, I don't think that's going to hurt us too much. I think losing against Boston College or Wake Forest could be challenging. Could raise a lot of eyebrows, particularly with rankings. Rankings aren't the end all be all of everything, of course, but I think we could lose to NC State and not get punished too much by that. So I'm okay with that. I think we have a decent shot at winning all 3 of these games. I would love to see it happen. Hopefully the team is back and is a little more crisp on defense. And if they are, then I think we've got a real shot of sweeping these next 3 games.
Daryl, can we go to 7-0 in the ACC?
Sure we can, but that NC State game obviously is the big question mark. You'd love to get the win, and I have the confidence that this team can, but circumstances. And I also wanted to point out just who we would have underneath on Cunane would be the rotation of Cochran and Dixon, and they both had a great game the other night. And I'm interested to see those matchups. There was a few plays that stood out to me. First, Dixon had the mask on every now and then. Sometimes it would be on her chin, but wasn't sure the reason for that. If she had it or if she was worried about other people breathing on her underneath, whatever it was. But there were a few plays I was that stood out. Was the back-to-back miscues for Dixon that got her pulled out at that time. I don't know if she was tired. I remember Emily tried to feed it to her underneath, and it would go off her fingertips and out of bounds, or she would get the ball inside and then travel with it. So turnovers, keep the turnovers at a minimum, and just be as big as you can against Cunane, and it's definitely possible. The other squads the rest of the month, I'm not as much worried about as NC State on the road.
Certainly one that's going to be a tough test for us indeed. Should be a fun one to watch as well. And I hope it's on the main ESPN channel. ESPN2, I guess, would be okay. But this is a top 5 matchup in the nation. Come on, ESPN. Think with your head.
Yeah, better be on ESPN.
Yeah, I mean, at least they're not shuffling it off to Bally Sports or something like that. But and we may even get Deb Antonelli for this one. There you go. So how about that? So the cards, kind of before we get into some final thoughts and things here, about a fourth of the way through their season in conference at 4-0. If you look at it overall, maybe half of the way through the season. Let's see if we can come up with the most outstanding player on the Louisville team right now. I know this is going to be very subjective. Well, I may end up with 4 different answers here and polling you all on this, but I'll go ahead and put mine out there. And I have to point to one, Keanu Smith. Keanu Smith has been pretty much a rock for this team as far as scoring goes, coming through and taking care of the things, logging a lot of minutes, providing the leadership out there and a little bit of stability to the team. Yes, we have some brilliant stars in that sky, but I think Keanu Smith is the one so far, at least in my opinion, that is our most outstanding player. Let's take it to you, Jared. What do you got?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I've kind of got it narrowed down to 3 different players between Kiana, Haley, and Emily. And it really is tough. And I'm pulling up the stats, just kind of compare, see how things are looking. And I think for me, although her 3-point shooting has been down this year, I'm probably going to have to stick with Haley. She's been one of our more reliable free throw shooters this year. You feel comfortable with her at the line. She's still scoring nearly 12 points a game, gets a couple rebounds. She's doing well in terms of with assists. She limits her fouls. She's only got 15, so she's way down on the list in terms of fouls on the team. But it's her defense that's really stood out to me. She's a fantastic just one-on-one defender, and she doesn't allow her person that she's guarding to score often in that one-on-one situation. And when we've been a team that's relied so heavily on defense this year and just using that as a way to kind of transition into get our offense going, that's really made the biggest statement for me. So I'm going to stick with Haley.
Jared, of course, getting a free embroidered shirt for his answer from Haley's NIL.
I just want that free jersey with the signature on it.
Definitely so, huh? Good luck on that one. Don't wait on the front porch too long. You might get cold. Go to you, Case. We got 2 different answers so far. If I'm going to ask you who the mop is on this team, most outstanding player, what are you coming up with?
I'm going to make it a 3rd different answer. And because we go most outstanding and not most valuable, for me, it has to be Emily Ingsler. Not looking at stats, just thinking about how she's played, who pops off the screen, who is outstanding when I watch the games, and it's Emily Ingsler. She's been, I think, she's really represented what we've come to see as UofL basketball. I feel like since coming in, bringing a lot of intensity and playing hard, being emotional. We don't like to see automatons out there playing for UofL. We want as a city without pro sports, without major pro sports teams. Sorry, racing. It's been a while since
basketball. Okay.
Yeah, Louisville and the state of Kentucky really center around basketball, and so would love to see players on the men's and women's side come in and really care and want to represent U of L and represent themselves and play hard for the basketball team. And she's done that and also been a real catalyst for the team offensively and defensively. And so just outstanding. For me, it has to be Engsler.
3 responses, 3 different answers. So we'll go to. I'm saving Daryl for last because I know she'll want to put a lot of thought and time and formulation into this. We'll go to Jeff next. Jeff, we got 3 different responses out there. Are you with these guys?
No, I'm going to go with a fourth. I am going to throw out a quick couple of honorable mentions. I think 2 players have been playing well, but don't get a huge amount of playing time, and maybe outstatting their playing time. I mentioned in my article last week Peyton Verhulst, whose stats are doing quite well relative to the amount of playing time she gets. So shout out to her, and Narika Kono, who I thought had a very good quarter of play in this game against Syracuse. Was about the limit of the playing time she got. It's nice. They had a Japanese film crew and reporter there apparently, and got to show her off a little bit. She had a couple of really great plays in there. So I want to shout those out real quick. I'm going to say Olivia Cochran because we have guards galore that we have, but we have a limited number of bigs. And Olivia is probably the prime one there with, Liz Dixon right behind her. But she is super athletic and super fun to watch. She's a big that can handle the ball. She's a big that runs the floor incredibly well. And I think that there's a core of value that she provides to the team there that should not be overlooked.
Olivia Cochran, indeed. He says 44. Depending on what hairstyle she wears, it can depend on how well she plays, right? No, I'm just kidding. Daryl, it kind of looks like you're behind the 8 ball here. 4 respondents, 4 different answers. Are you going to make this a 5-way tie, or are you going to break it?
Oh, I'm gonna break it. So I think for the most outstanding, which we've clarified is different than most valuable,
Mm-hmm.
I think that the most outstanding player is Emily Engsler. And I'm just you look at the roster for the Cards, and she just stands out. And she does that on the court too. You see her out there. She takes up a lot of space. She gives a lot of energy. And without her this year, I would be a little worried about our record. I don't think that's just me. I really do think that she is the difference maker for this team, and she leaves it out on the floor every night. It's so much fun to watch.
Somewhere, Sam Fearing and Mahesh and Heinz Allen are smiling, saying, "See what we started there? You go,
Absolutely.
EE. You go, EE." Indeed, and certainly Emily will be more than happy to share her opinion with you on many things, sometimes warranted, sometimes unwarranted. She's one of those girls that just comes in and puts on the hard hat, gives you a blue collar performance, and always remembers to punch out when she leaves the floor. So we do love her so, and you made a very good point. What kind of team would we be without her this year? Yeah, that could be a whole other show right there. But looking at the clock on the wall, we are past the noon hour, so it's time for us to roll into some final thoughts. And we will go ahead and start that out with the newbie here, or at least as far as being with us in recent terms. Daryl, I'm going to let you bring us your final thoughts.
All right. Well, I don't want to skip over the Boston College game because I know that Coach isn't, but I am looking forward to the match on Thursday and doing that write up. The matchup I'm most looking forward to would be the Cunane and who's on her. I think it'll be Olivia to start. She's got to stay big on Cunane because Cunane is going to try to get her in foul trouble and off the floor as soon as possible. So she just got to stay big, whip that hair around, smack her a few times with it. I mean, not against the rules. So make your presence known and get that victory. And I think that the rest of the season is the team will be riding a high. Looking forward to the postseason. And my other final thought is that today in 1892 was the day that James Naismith published the original 13 rules of basketball. Fun fact.
Which some of our ACC referees are still adhering to, rule by rule.
I would be okay if they were.
Yeah. You cannot touch the peach basket when the ball is headed toward it. We haven't seen that called in a couple games anyway. All right, Jeff, what you got for me?
I'm gonna shout out the Portland Pickles social media marketing team.
I saw this the other day.
Right?
This could be fun.
Absolutely amazing.
Totally unrelated to anything
Fascinating.
that we talk about, but they put together a marketing that was supposedly a mascot takeover. That marketing campaign, and it pretty clearly was a setup from the very beginning. But it's been entertaining.
A minor league baseball team
Minor league baseball teams have some of the best marketing
with
folks,
a PR stunt. I can't believe it.
All right, exactly, yeah.
Who without it?
It's maybe vaguely not safe for work, so be a little bit careful with it. But yeah, it's been entertaining to watch and the follow up and the follow through on it. So yeah,
Nothing like pickle bear, huh?
yeah.
Hey, Case, what you got for me?
On the note of minor league baseball teams, I've really enjoyed the Louisville Bats' new logo, which is a part animal and part the baseball equipment.
Nice.
So
I haven't seen it yet. I haven't checked that out.
It's done by a Twitter account called MLB Paint, creating things in Microsoft Paint.
Nice.
But anyway, I wanted to go back to the article I wrote today and shout out the women's swimming team for what was an upset over the 10th ranked Indiana team. And on their way to that, they set 17 B cut times. B cuts and A cuts, good for getting you into the NCAA championship swimming ability. So they put in a lot of good times in the pool yesterday. And then the women's track and field team that had a couple of wins in a very crowded Blazer Invitational, from what I could tell. A lot of major universities, a lot of unaffiliated teams. So to pick up 2 wins and 2 more podiums and a whole slew of personal bests. Shout out to both of those teams.
Very good stuff indeed. Absolutely for them. Jared, what's going on in that brain? What do you got for final thoughts?
Yeah, a couple things. First, just real quick, got to kind of send our best wishes to our friends that are Kentucky Wildcat fans and their loss of Joby Hall last night or this morning, and the friendship that him and Denny Crum established. And honestly, when it comes to UofL UK basketball rivalry, what they were to able just really build and turn it into what it is today. But more just UofL related, Louisville Cross finally has, other than their opponent's schedule out, they finally have the dates and times set. And of the 9 home games, it looks like 6 of them are either weekend or evening games. So I'm glad they're trying to stray away from a lot of those midweek, midday games. They still have a couple going on here. But that way you can draw more fans out in attendance this way, and looking forward to getting out there here in about a month or so.
Certainly so. I know Scott Teeter busily at work down on campus, getting things ready to roll for the Louisville Laxers this spring. And a little bit of winter in there too, but this spring primarily. Final thoughts out of me here. I'm going to go back to women's indoor track and field. A shout out to Gabriella Leon in the pole vault. She actually had to survive a jump off, if there is such a thing in pole vault, where they, well, yeah, I guess it could happen, to secure the victory. But she very, very good pole vaulter in her career at UofL, and certainly one that I think that they can take a lot of pride on, Dale Cowper and crew down there, for the job she's done. And also a freshman, Stelania, and I won't even try to pronounce the last name. I'll go Olanadu.
Yeah, I had no idea. She's from Cyprus. I couldn't tell you. But Gabriella Leon with that win in pole vault wasn't one of the many people who set a personal best yesterday.
Yeah, but Stelania set a mark that tied the 5th all-time jump in program history and took the win. That for a freshman, and certainly good things expected of her down the road for Louisville indoor track and field. Always fun to stuff. As Harry Lindsay once told me, it may be my favorite sporting event because so much of it is individual going against individual and showing to, am I better than you? Can I beat you here? Am I faster than you? Uh, Fun stuff to watch, right? That will do it for us here for the Cardinal Couple Radio Hour podcast. Certainly enjoyed being with you all today. We'll be back with you next week around 11ish. So certainly tune in and join us unless you know something we don't. And as always, go Cards.
Go Cards.